Hello, everyone. My name is Kaylin Rojas, and my order number is week 10, number 12. And today, I will be talking about the effect of economic support from lawful family members on mental health of undocumented undergraduate students. Undocumented students experience major pressures such as constantly worrying about immigration policy, being discriminated against in their everyday lives, and struggling with money, all of which cause mental strain and social stress. With this research, I hope to understand how we can implement policies that lower the financial strain on undocumented undergraduate students so as to reduce their overall stress levels. I personally believe that this topic is very sociologically important because it shows how legal status creates a division in students within the U.S. More specifically, immigration laws and policies limit resources for these students. For example, undocumented undergraduate students cannot get jobs and they are withheld from certain types of financial aid, which leads to unequal access for opportunity. Because of these social and political limitations, instead of focusing their energy on studying, they have the added load of making sure that they can afford to get through school and do better for themselves and their families. Oftentimes, having to find other means of making enough in order to be able to afford tuition and other important school-related fees. Because of these issues, my guiding research question for this project is, does having economic support from lawfully present family members lessen poor mental health outcomes for undocumented students pursuing higher education? With this question in mind, my hypothesis is that having economic support from lawfully present family members does lessen poor mental health outcomes for undocumented students pursuing higher education. For this section, I will talk a little bit about the literature that has been written on the topic of undergraduate immigrant students and their social stressors. Firstly, a study by Torres et al. In 2022 examined 969 undocumented students, all of which had greater overall stress scores compared to U.S. citizens and DACA recipients. However, an analysis by another study conducted by Velarde et al. In 2021 showed that multiple studies indicate that a student's legal status by itself is not the strongest predictor of anxiety, stress, or depression. Instead, studies suggest that specific legal problems caused by legal status, also known as legal vulnerabilities, are the real causes of stress. This study concluded that economic insecurity, discrimination, and family threat are the most powerful predictors of anxiety, depression, and stress among immigrant students. In addition to this, a study by Rodriguez et al. In 2023 found that stress is also shared across these students' families. Because of these stressors and these oppression policies, many students tend to want to fight back against this oppression. A quantitative study conducted by Morales Hernandez et al. In 2024 found that students with higher levels of political engagement reported higher depression and anxiety scores. A study by Manolo Pedro in 2024 takes this even further by concluding that political engagement only reduces anxiety for U.S. citizen students with lawfully present parents. Because of these legal uncertainties as well, a study by O'Neill et al. In 2016 finds that students tend not to look for support outside of immediate family out of fear of exposing their legal status, which further contributes to the idea that seeking social support is stressful. Overall, the literature I just described summarize how a common theme of stress stems from economic insecurity and searching for help from others. Using the literature as inspiration for this project, my method will implement a quantitative study that focuses on the economic support from lawfully present family members. Specifically, undocumented students will be compared directly to U.S. citizen students on their mean scores for individual economic insecurity and mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. The main analysis will examine the degree to which the relationship between individual economic insecurity as the independent variable and mental health issues as the dependent variable are moderated by the presence of lawfully present family members in the household, which will be the moderator variable. This study will target around 1,000 students, 500 of which will be undocumented and 500 will be documented students. This study will also target students, undergraduate students in public universities in California due to the fact that California has different policies for undocumented undergraduate students than other states within the U.S. The study will take questions from the GAD-7 and PHQ-9 scales to measure anxiety and depression symptoms. Both of these scales were used in previous literature studies that I mentioned earlier. The study will also take from the U.S. Household Food Security Survey module, which was used by Velarde et al. 2021, and it will use related questions on financial strain, which was used by Torres et al. In 2022. There will also be a mandatory consent page detailing the study's purpose, confidentiality protocols, and voluntary nature, so as to not violate any of the comfortability and confidentiality of any of the participants. The participants will also be encouraged to gather other participants that they feel may fit within the criteria of the study. As for methods to analyze the data collected, categorical variables will be coded numerically, for example, using either a 1 or a 0, and all questions taken from the GAD-7, PHQ-9, and economic insecurity scales will be scored with negatively worded items being coded in reverse to make sure that a higher score reflects a higher level of the construct. For example, a higher anxiety score indicates higher insecurity. To further analyze this data and make a basic comparison between these two populations, 2 separate t-tests will be performed. The first will compare the mean mental health issues score between the undocumented and U.S. citizen groups, and the second will compare the mean individual economic insecurity score between the two groups. The test will then compare standard deviations, means, and spreads of the scores. In total, these scores will be used to determine which of the two populations experience higher perceived levels of stress according to the economic support that they receive from their lawfully present family members in their household. Using the data from this study, I expect to find that more economic support from lawfully present family members will lessen the load that these students feel on a day-to-day basis. I feel that this makes sense within the context of the study because as seen in the literature before, lawfully present family members create a higher sense of security for these students as they lessen the worry from exposing their family members for their legal statuses. Also, as we found in the literature, economic insecurity also leads to higher levels of stress and anxiety, so more economic support from these lawfully present family members may indicate a lower stress load for these undocumented undergraduate students. Some limitations of this study include outside stress factors that can affect a student's perceived stress level. For example, students may feel stress from heavy workloads, family issues, or other outside problems that do not specifically have to do with their legal status and the policies with which allow them to study. Also, the study may not reflect the same data if it were to be conducted in another state within the US or if it were to be conducted in another country with different policies. Overall, for the contribution of this study, hopefully I will inspire policies that lessen financial burden on immigrant undergraduate students, and hopefully this study will serve to inspire other studies that will focus on other ways in which we can make stress more manageable for these undergraduate immigrant students. Thank you.